Hello and welcome to the Riddle of Isidora podcast. I'm Tania Holland Williams, a Mezzo Soprano, and I'm also the director of Davy Jones Locker. We commissioned Aleksandr Brusentsev to compose the Riddle of Isidora back in November 2014 for myself and flautist Heleth Francis Wright.
I'd like to think that the biggest influences on the piece are the text and my conversations with Tania. It's hard to pin down exactly what attracted me about the poem. I guess in a very basic way, I thought it was beautiful and it spoke to me and I felt really connected to it. More than that, I guess I felt connected to it in a way that made me want to engage and do so musically. I felt like there was still an open door for some layer of musical commentary. And that's really what I look for in any poem that I try to set.
For me, the joy of working with a composer on a new piece, and particularly somebody like Alex, who's really collaborative and who very much wants the piece to work for the performers as well as the audience, is that there tends to be a period once the piece has been written where the composer's checking in with the performers about the finer detail and the doability of the piece, as it were. So there's a couple of bars around the words "soothed by the certainty of my lullabies" that I think had 3 or 4 different iterations before Alex finalised the score.
The question of instrumentation is actually one that, for me, is really closely tied to the question of meaning in the text itself. As I see it, the voice of Isidora is actually one that's not... It's heard as an external voice, but it's one that comes from within. It's the city of desire. To me, that's something that's quite visceral and internal. And so consequently, the way that I have imagined this setting is that the voice is sort of the audible incarnation of that, and then the flute is sort of the visceral response, but all of it, I guess, happening within one individual.
My name is Heleth Francis Wright, and in this piece I play alto flute. Disjointed togetherness is how I think of it. So we're often moving together or very closely linked, but there's a feeling of it could fall apart at any minute as well, which is, I think Alex has created on purpose, really, to create a feeling of instability and uncertainty in the music. And yet at other times it's really solidly locked together, especially at the end, where the two forces are really working together.
I love the way that Alex writes for the voice. There's incredible scope for using different colour, sometimes making it almost pale and without any colour at all. And then other sections where you're allowed to be incredibly rich and vibrant. And that vocal palette is always massively appeals to any singer. And I think he does that for the alto flute as well.
One of the houses that that hosted us was Laurie Harpham's, who's an artist who's working a lot with concrete at the moment. So we talked a lot about the comparisons between her work and our work, and where there were similarities and differences. And she was talking about how, yes, when concrete's very thin, it's very fine and kind of wonderful in that respect, but it's very brittle, so it could break at any moment.
Come, traveler. Sit ye down and remember.
The poem was inspired by a chapter from a book by Italo Calvino called Invisible Cities. And it talks about the city of Isidora. So the Riddle of Isidora is a response to that chapter, and it's really trying to unpick the fact that all of our journeys, which head off in so many different directions, all have the same destination point. And inevitably we come to a place in our lives where our capacity for making choice, seizing new possibilities, it all starts to get eroded and slowly drawn away from us.
You can see something that I've seen elsewhere in Alex's writing, where the refrain that comes back 3 times, the I am Isidora points, give us something that's familiar and also is going to move us into the next section. It just creates a very different feeling when you're listening to alto. At the top end, the notes are far more difficult to reach, really, especially we have a particularly challenging section towards the end where I'm playing high harmonics, and they're quite hard to reach, but they also give a kind of quite ghostly sort of sound as well. Talking to him, he seemed really keen on the harsher the better, and to really give a big ending for the piece. It does have a sort of epic feel to it.
I really feel that I haven't done my job as a composer unless whatever instrumentation that I've written something for is quite literally the only way that it could exist justifiably.
It's communicating an interpretation of the story of Isidora, this imagined city where people beyond their useful lifespan are sent to live out their days. So hopefully it's communicating some of that sorrow and perhaps anger at that sort of situation.